Insist on coming along. Be sure to keep your distance.
Get out of my way! I will not be stopped by you. I will not be stopped by anybody. I will destroy you all!
Ah, yes. Well, good.
You're all going to die. No one is going to escape. I'll enjoy your suffering.
Yeah, when Dust starts swinging that sword, you don't want to be anywhere near him. Have you seen the screen? He just goes...
Yes, I heard something about that.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I am SocioPsycho, and today we take a look at Dust, an Elysian tale. This is created by Humble Heart LLC, available on PC, Mac, and Linux, and it is a action platformer Metroidvania style with the art style or character style of anthropomorphic, which simply means creatures of animal likeness in a humanoid body. Anthropomorphic has a bad rep because of furries in a porn industry, but the game sets its own merits, and it brings back the true beauty of the anthropomorphic purity, which is just wonder, passion, and a sense of something that's different and beautiful at the same time. So when we go into the options menu to see exactly how well it does, you have how to play, which gives you basically a huge table of contents of everything you need to know on how to play, the controls, and for keyboard, as it is keyboard and controller oriented with no issues there. Your settings offer a lot more than you think for a 2D side screen scroller platformer game. You get sound and music, and the music in this game, oh, the music is so good. It is very beautiful, and it helps propel the atmosphere and keeps the tone at every second of the game at a perfect level to really just give you that little nuance of adventure. Controller, mouse, keyboard, vibration, pretty standard. Auto heal, auto level up, auto advance, and what's nice is they have a pop-up description of what each of these do. Now you have plenty of screen resolutions, which is nice, and the graphical quality of the game is something that is truly beautiful, and we'll go more into that in the review. But you have plenty of effects, so if it's not too taxing on your system. I found the game ran easily at 60 frames per second with no issues, no tearing, no clipping, no crashing. I had no problems in performance whatsoever. Now you can also adjust your HUD, which is perfectly nice and fine. When you start the game, you have the option of playing on different levels. And this is really where the challenge of the game begins, because if you're new to it, you can start on casual. If you're more experienced, maybe don't look for too much of a fight, normal, and you get tough and hardcore. And the difference between these are actually very varied, to the point that you don't feel as if your capability is not met. Of course, I'm speaking as I played through on tough. And when it comes to these styles of games, I'm not the best player, but I can hold my own enough to get through it. I'm sure there's somebody out there who played the hardcore and was like, that was easy, what are you talking about? Now let's jump in the game here, because I want to show you a few things about the interface. Now as you can see, this is pretty much the standard interface that you're going to have. It's very clean and very easy to see. On the top right hand side you have your map, and you can easily bring that up to increase the visualization of your map. The map itself is very beautiful, and it's not often that you see a map even in a 2D game, let alone one that has been done very well such as this. The way you navigate and easily move around and understand where you are and where you're going has been very thought out, and I've never had an issue upon understanding where I am in the world, or because of that, lack of knowledge or confusion upon where I am and where I need to go, taking away from any of the gameplay. So the fact that they have that and they continuously allow you to know where you are and where you're going keeps you on track, which relies you mainly onto the combat aspect of focus and not worrying about something that petty. On the other side, you have your experience, the food choice, which is basically the same thing as a health potion, your energy bar. When you use an ability, it will go down, and if you hold it down too long, you're actually going to take damage and hurt your health. So there's a trade-off of what you want. And the blue bar underneath the green, which is your health, is the experience. Now we'll simply go into some of the basic inventory and character slots that you have here. And when you look at the character itself, you have your health, which can increase your attack, increases your defense. Fidgets, which is your companion, her damage can increase. And when you level up, you gain ability points, and you can put these ability points in these slots, and you can move forward your luck and level and experience. It's very standard yet very simple, but at the same time, it's very thorough in what it does. It doesn't have too much to complicate somebody, but it doesn't feel as if it's missing anything at the same time, as the majority of the combat takes part of how you interact and the fluidity during your movements. And this simply just adds the extra little meat to the combat system, which is really appreciative and adds that just right amount of dash of finite. When we look into your inventory, now your inventory is split up by different sections. You have all your items and keys, so I have Grapey Sheep, and I have 5 requested I like to get 6 of them. So you can see all the items that you have in this area. Now your weapon is still. You don't actually upgrade your weapon, but what you upgrade is augmentations upon your weapon, and as you can see, this one increases your attack by 50, where these ones are weaker. And you can see how it very easily and very clearly states on the sidebar, hey, this will decrease your damage rather than increase, and it's very nice. Oh, I cannot stress how nice it is that they have that implementation of such a clean interface, making it that much easier and that much quicker to understand what you use and what you're going to be able to have. Now, these little blueprints here are exactly that. They're blueprints, and that goes more into crafting, which we'll talk about in a minute. But even crafted items which you don't actually have yet, you can see there's an increase in all of your abilities, and that's really nice as well. When it comes to armor, same thing, exact same thing. You can see the increase in the defense and all of this, no problem. I should really increase my armor by twice, double it. Alright, and then your health potion. As you level up, you'll find more foods that offer an increase in health. So you never feel like, oh, I'm using continuously a low-end food item which only heals 40. No, as you level up, you'll eventually find, and you can buy food items which will increase as well. And then you have your rings, which do the exact same thing as your armor and your weapons. And there's different variations: attack, XP bonus, luck, energy regain. So it's really up to you in these small finite changes upon how you want to build your character. It's not anything that overall like totally makes your character play 100% different. But it's these little things that give you a little bit more effort into, well, I want to have more defense than I do attack. Or perhaps I want to have more mana regain, or I want to try to pump out as much experience as I can. So the fact that they have something that small, even though it's not all that much in a depth category, it's still nice to have because it offers some, and having some is better than nothing. And the same thing with the necklaces, as you can see. So necklaces, I think I'm actually... well, that one is 6, 6, and 6, but I have 6 attack, 3, 2. Ooh, yeah, that. Let's wear this one. That one's a lot better. I bought this one and then I obviously didn't wear it, didn't equip it. So that makes quite the difference. 60 attack versus 6 attack. Your map, which we've gone over. Your stats, how much time you've played. I've played a lot longer than that, but... So in your quests, this is very nice and very easy, as you can keep track. Again, the way they've managed the UI is you can keep track of what you've done, as well as what you still need to do, as you can see here. Completed quests, and your notes. Notes are simply just the in-game lore that you pick up in different areas upon the map upon exploration, and they just offer that little extra bit of meat that a character may be looking for. Now, when we go into materials, because the materials are important, and materials drop off of creatures, so when you kill creatures, they'll drop different things. It could either just be money or food, but mainly just crafting materials. And these crafting materials' main purpose is simply just to craft your items and weapons and whatnot, because there is a iron forger and weapon forger in the game who, when you go to, if you have a blueprint, you give them a blueprint, and then you say, hey, I would like this item crafted, and you give them the supplies and they make you that item, and there you go. I mean, it's pretty straightforward in that regard. There's no issues whatsoever with the crafting system, which ties into the loot and the gear itself, because while there is a crafting system in the game, it's not dependent upon it, and that's the important thing to note. There are plenty of merchants throughout the game as well, and these merchants increase in their stock as you continue through the game. So as you can see here, through this very low basic merchant, they have different items that you can buy that you can then equip on your character like I showed you. But then when we travel to a more further down the road merchant, you can see he has a lot more in offering you more powerful health potions, increased weaponry and armor. There's a whole bunch of scale, really is what the easiest way to say is, in the game. You don't have to farm for a certain item, or you don't feel like you're never really progressing, because while you do level up and you do feel stronger, the gear is a major player as in any RPG, and as you progress through the story, say you don't have enough materials to craft an item that you want. Well, it's okay, because you'll still be able to get some version, even if it's a weaker version, from a merchant, and still feel like you're progressing, and that's a really nice thing, and that's a really important thing. The merchants scale as you scale, and so you never feel as if you're falling behind because you didn't get that one drop, or you didn't get that special item. So it does very well on its capability to actually balance how you go through the game and how you play. And this is even more manifested itself by the fact that they have chests. Now, when you come across a chest, you can easily open it up with a key, and it has a little bit of a mini game, which is nice, and then you open it up and you get this loot. You find keys throughout the world, or you can buy them at merchants, but they are a little expensive if you buy them at merchants. So it comes down to skill, because if you don't take damage and you're really good at avoiding damage, then you're not wasting money on health potions, which means that you can hold on to more of your money, and therefore you can either buy keys with ease, or buy weapons, or just do more. So it really comes down to the better you are, the easier it is, I guess. Now we talked very briefly about the map, but I would also like to show really quickly the world map, because the animational quality of this game, the art style that they decided to go with, is very beautiful and unique. It's not something you see all the time, or very rarely. It has this sort of animational, cartoonish, yet serious feel to it, and it pulls it off actually very well, because it's beautiful, but it's also sort of Looney Tune-esque in some areas. Some areas it's like, wow, this is just gorgeous, and then other areas like, oh, this is sort of Looney Tunes feel, but without the humor aspect, with just the aesthetic. Now when we talk about level design and how the world is broken up, as I did state in the beginning that this game is a platformer. Now it's not a platformer in the sense of, hey, the entire game is just you jumping around. But platforming elements in the game are actually very small or few. It doesn't mean that they're necessarily easy, but if you have the change in difficulty, that will depend on how much damage you take from running into spikes or some such. So it's very well balanced in how much platforming it has, as well as where it breaks it up. That way you don't feel as if you're running through one area continuously, just spending your entire time platforming through the entire game. Because the platforming element is an addition, an add-on, just like the RPG elements are, leaving the game with a very satisfying and very beautiful feel. Because the level design itself is interactive with your world. There may be parts where you need to grab a bomb and bring it all the way over to a door and blow it up. That's part of a, I wouldn't say puzzle, but more of a platforming element, because you have to drag the bomb to a certain area, which is very easy to do unless there are spikes in between you and the location you need to get. But it's not a hassle. It doesn't feel like a chore to move the bomb to the door, and that's very important. They've managed to accomplish the task without making it an inconvenience, and it fills into the story and the aesthetic of the game that much more. The way the world is shaped, the graphics, the atmosphere is varied enough to where it splits up the different zones where you don't feel like you're spending 40% of the game in a forest and then another 40% in a mountain and then 20% in a dungeon or a cave or something like that. It does a very well job of balancing out the different atmospheres and keeping to those different atmospheres, as well as adding a little element of beauty or a new creature that you may not have expected to see, all at the right intervals. So it continues to progress you through the game, not just in a combat, oh I'm getting better, I'm understanding how I'm doing, but also in a, what are you facing, what does this monster do, and what is this world that you're coming across in. Now, it doesn't mean that necessarily the monsters you're going to be facing are always continuously going to be increasing, forcing you to have to play even better and better and better, because, like I said in the beginning, the balance issue of the game, of how it actually plays, is fair. If you play on normal or casual, it's going to be exceedingly different than if you're playing on tough or hardcore. And while the creatures and the level design of how many creatures may be the same, the difficulty added comes from the damage that you take, the damage the enemy can absorb, and it really plays a huge difference in a game like this, where your main concern is not getting hit. Where your main concern is, how can I avoid damage and still keep myself being a powerhouse? And should you be a powerhouse, should you be somebody who's like, oh man, I played the game on tough and it was easy, or I played it on hardcore and it was easy, they have these little challenge areas. Now, these challenge areas could be anywhere from a speed through a variation of wind turbines, or they could be fighting against enemies and you get an item, your reward, at the end of the challenge zone. And the whole purpose of this is to give a player a little extra incentive to do side content. They can test themselves against their time and their score, and try to get a max of 4 stars. This is really nice to see, as it just adds that little extra bit of meat. And when we're talking about those little nuances, those little things that either keep you integrated into the world, either if you're exploring and you're like, hey, wow, look what I found, it's a secret. Or if you're somebody who's like, I leveled up, but I want my character to be more powerful. I don't like the fact that my character, once I hit a certain level or I get to a certain point, just feels like I stop progressing. When you find some of these secret creatures, they will give you a passive bonus, which increases your health, or possibly some other, because I haven't found all of them. But the ones I did found gave me an increase in my health, about 5%. This is very nice, as it adds that little extra bit of depth of where you continuously feel like you're progressing, even if it's been a very long time since you had a level up. And it doesn't allow a feeling of monotonous to seep in, because you always have this little extra progression or capability to continue forward, just that one little bit. And this is continued when we talk about the combat. Now, the combat is broken up into 2 main parts. The first part is the parry system. The parry system is not something that's hardwired into every conflict, and it is something that will help avoid crucial timing hits upon you, but it's not something that is a must for the majority of the battles. Because for the majority of the battles, it comes down to your own personal capability of dodging or moving around the enemies in the fluidity of a combat. And while the parry system does have its place hardwired into some of the creatures, it's not something that you need to rely upon while even facing bosses necessarily. Because the timing has to be so precise, your personality or playstyle or reflexes might just not be attuned to that sort of enjoyment. Me personally, I'm more of a tank mentality versus a dodge and parry mentality. So getting that perfect timing down for parrying is not my forte. But when you get it right, it stuns the enemy and you're able to do damage to an enemy that you may not be able to do damage or very little damage to before. So in some very particular cases, it is needed, but it's not thrown at you all the time. It's not something you see 1 in 4 fights. It's more like 1 in 15, if that. And because of that, because they realize, okay, our system of combat, our way that we have created a game, may not actually be enjoyable for everybody, so we're not going to make this ability forced on you in every fight. And because of that, I can respect them so much. Because of that, they keep the fluidity of their game alive in the other aspects. The more you understand your basic controls, how to move and dodge and parry around somebody without parrying their attack, like switch behind them and then you switch to the other side. You jump up and you swirl and you turn, and there's all these movements that you can make which help the game be very fluid in its combat. It has one of the most fluid combats of this style of game which I've played. And I've enjoyed it so much. The sensation of power that you have when you accomplish your task, as there is a hit chain combo number in the top right corner once you start hitting the enemy. This will get higher and higher the more you hit the enemy. And watching that go into the hundreds or even the thousands as you fight through these armies of enemies at some points, it's just so satisfying. It has different animational qualities about the game, where if you're able to grab onto somebody while you're in the air, you can actually dive attack them all the way to the ground and do extra damage. There are in-air attacks which make you just being able to fly around the entire map. And because of this, now it also sort of ties into level design a little bit, because they've allowed this, the levels really feel non-linear. The levels have a large opening area where you can usually fly all about, unless you're in a cave obviously, because a cave has a roof, that's why it's a cave. You learn something new every day. The way that you can fly and just bounce off of different enemies and glide and the atmosphere, it all ties together to such a satisfying feel and makes the game feel so non-linear, because you are able to move about as you want. It doesn't matter if I'm moving in a straight line, because I'm moving in the sky or I'm moving on the ground and I'm fighting these enemies and doing this fluidity of combat so well. I don't need two paths to get to one area, because the one path I'm taking gives me so much choice in how I get through my enemies that it's so satisfying that it's enough for me. Which ties into the creatures. Now, there are different types of creatures and there are different ways of getting past these creatures, some more safe or better than others. But the fact that they have these different styles of creatures that continuously test your capability to understand how to move or dodge or parry or attack or whatever the case is, mixed in with these different atmospheres, really is nice to see. Now, the difficult part is if you end up in an area where you have to parry against an opponent and you suck at parrying, then you might just end up dying or trial and error a few times. But those few opponents that do that are not something that you see very often, and because of that I can respect it. As I said before, it understands that everybody is going to be amazing in one category, so it doesn't force that one category on everybody all the time. It splits it up very nicely. And you end up with a unique perspective of different styles of creatures as the game progresses forward, making it so you don't feel like any of the character animations are really being reused or oversaturated. And while you may come across a creature that you saw before, it's not often or numerous in a new area where you're like, oh, these guys again, oh great. And the fact that it leads into bosses in the different chapters. The bosses in the game are very well designed. They offer that level of challenge, but more importantly, it feels fair. It doesn't feel like the boss is cheating or they're just going to try to combo your ass down. Yes, it comes to personal ability. Yes, it comes down to how well are you in the capability to actually fight. How well are you able to actually understand what the enemy is going to do and be able to counter it? But it doesn't feel like the enemy is going to hit me combo, 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 combo. Oh, he hit me, I'm down, I can't get back up, oh, I'm dead. And he just does some variation of that again. And that's one thing that this game really made sure that it did not suffer from, is the fact that you do not end up getting hit in a combo fashion by the enemy and dying. You have plenty of ample opportunities and capabilities to dodge around your enemies, to get back up into the fight after you get knocked down, and not be taken out so easily. That does come off as well to what level of difficulty you're playing on, but the game is very fair, and that is why I can respect it. It doesn't say, oh well, if you don't manage to play the game perfectly, then you're screwed. Oh, you should have dodged, dodge, block, parry, dodge, parry, dodge, attack, thrust, parry, dodge, attack. No, it's like, you know what? In the fluidity that we have offered you, play as you feel that you want to play, and just attack as you feel that your skill is able to. And in doing so, you aren't tied down to one little area of, oh well, if I don't attack this particular way, or if I don't watch myself carefully against this boss in this exact fashion, then he's going to combo me to death. Now there is a difference between a one shot and a combo, and if you have it on hard difficulty, the damage output will be greater, so there is a chance that you may actually get one shot. But the boss never hit you once, knocked you down, and then hit you 5 other times, making it so you died before you could even get back up. It was very fair and respected your time, and that's the most important thing. Overall, this game respects your time. It says, hey, We understand that you want to play the game and you want to enjoy your atmosphere, and so we're going to wrap around our characters for you and respecting you. We understand that you are maybe playing in short spurts of time, so we have plenty of save points, and it's very obvious where those save points are. We have it so that the monsters aren't abusive, and the combat is very fluid, so we're able to allow you to just get through it without feeling frustrated. And when it comes down to the story element in the game, how well the story is written, there are some parts which are like, skip. I mean, I don't skip stories, but it kind of feels like that. I like to hear and see everything, but some of the writing in some parts is a little boring or just drawn out more than it needs to be. But for the most part, the writing in the story is done very well, and it conveys this atmosphere of, I know what I'm doing, I can talk with the different characters, I can get this feel and character building, I can understand where I'm going and what's happening in the world. It does a very good job at not only expressing to you what is going on in the world and why things are happening, but also in the voice acting itself. And I'll let you be the judge of that yourself right now.
What's the matter? Afraid of the dark?
Ha! I laugh at the dark. Actually, I'm afraid of heights.
Wait, heights? How is that possible? You fly all the time, everywhere.
Oh, do I? I must have forgotten. Just like you must have forgotten that I can still fall at any time.
So, what brings you to this far outside Aurora? I'm assuming that's where you're from.
Honestly, it doesn't matter. They'll just keep coming back.
What was once a land of promise has fallen to the ravages of war. And it was in this, our most desperate hour, that the greatest of Elysian tales began.
So at the end of the day, in the summary upon this game, the combat is fluid to a most beautiful point. It is one of the most enjoyable side-screen scrolling combat experiences I've had, in the ability for it to make you feel satisfied without wasting any of your time, but still give you a challenge, and express a world to you that may be straight in pathways, but also have different levels on those pathways that you can access, and then you can also fly around with your abilities or climb. The levels never felt linear, and they were very large actually, tied in with the story, which was just beautifully well implemented into the game. So as you play this game and you continue through it, you end up with this sense of, I want to know more, I want to play more, because the way the combat makes you feel, the way the story entices you to know more, and the way the level design doesn't waste your time, I can easily recommend this game. It is not often, and when I say not often, I mean blue moon not often, that a game comes out on Steam and it has a bunch of reviewers who are like 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10, 8 out of 10. Very rarely, and almost never, will I agree with those statements because, well, one, I don't do a number system, but I can definitely say a high score value for this game is right on the money. This is an easy recommend and one that I definitely enjoyed my time while playing. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for listening, for I've been SocioPsycho, and I'll see you next time.